Welcome, everybody, to Youturn. I have a fantastic guest and friend today, Natasha. I still don't know how to pronounce your last name, so you're going to have to say it.
Well, now it's Houston, so it's a lot
easier. Oh, it's
easier.
Houston. Okay, yes. I can say Houston. So Natasha Houston, she is a friend. She is my Orange Theory coach. We'll talk about Orange Theory a little bit today. But the topic today is, again, eating disorders. And I've had on a therapist, an eating disorder therapist. And I've had on Jenny Kane, who owns Monkeys, and she was here talking about bulimia. And today I'm here to talk to Natasha about her eating disorder, but really eating disorders in as a whole, because the statistics are startling. And I did not memorize these, so I'll have to read them. But before I introduce Natasha, just to get more on topic, 28.8 million Americans will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. This is something I did not know. Eating disorders are among the deadliest mental illnesses, second only to opioid overdose, which Youturn Health does a lot of work in that field. 10,200 deaths each year are the direct result of an eating disorder. That's one death every 52 minutes, and about 26% of people with eating disorders attempt suicide. And then Natasha's an athlete, so I did a little digging into athletes and eating disorder statistics, because to me it just makes sense that being fit and being thin would be sort of in direct relation with athletics. But athletes report higher rates of excessive exercise than non-athletes. That's pretty much a given. And athletes are more likely to screen positive for an eating disorder than non-athletes, and athletes may be less likely to seek treatment due to stigma and accessibility and sport-specific barriers. And the one that really grabs my heart, because I have two girls, and I just know a lot of my friends with with teenage and younger daughters, 42% of first through third grade girls want to be thinner. Let's see. Where did I have that? 42% of first through third grade girls want to be thinner. 81% of 10-year-old girls are afraid of being fat. 46% of 9 to 11-year-olds are sometimes or very often on diets. And 35 to 57% of adolescent girls engage in crash dieting, self-induced vomiting, diet pills, or laxatives. And the last one is in a college campus survey, 91% of the women admitted to controlling their weight through dieting. So clearly these statistics show there is a huge problem in our country with eating disorders. People say obesity is a huge problem, and it is, but we can go the other way, and I think they're both eating disorders if you think about it that way. But anyway, happy Friday. Welcome to the show. Today our guest is Natasha Houston. Natasha, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be an Orange Theory coach?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I started gymnastics when I was 6 years old and did it.
That's early.
Yes, very early. I was flipping around, doing the jungle gym, all the things, and my parents were just like, we've got to get her under control.
Yeah.
Get some of this energy out. So they put me in gymnastics classes when I was 6. And I loved it. I mean, I was addicted to the sport, and I ended up getting a full ride scholarship and went to college for it as well. So
wow.
I did the sport for 16 years, and so I think that's definitely where Orange Theory comes into play, because, when you're surrounded by fitness your whole life, I gravitate to that naturally and want to help people. So
I often hear in gymnastics and dancing and things like that there was a huge push by the parents. Did you have that push, or was it you wanted to do it all?
Yeah, I mean, it was me, 100%. I mean, even I got injured a lot with gymnastics, and the times I was injured, my parents were like, it's totally okay. Like, if you want to quit, do you want to try tennis, like golf, you can do whatever. Because I never did any other sport.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe the one thing I would change when I was younger is maybe do something a little different. But looking back though, like my parents couldn't pull me away.
Yeah.
Especially when I was so young. Like I loved it.
And that would be so hard as a parent to pull your child away if
Yeah.
they were so passionate about something. That's our
Yeah.
biggest hope for our kids, that they'll find a passion and go with it. But did you ever notice anything in, you say 6 years old, so I'm thinking maybe through high school, was there any pressure to be thin or fit, or what was the deal there?
Yeah. So I started at a different gym when I was younger, gymnastics club. When I was in 8th grade, I switched to one of a different caliber. Basically, my parents had the discussion with me, this is a very expensive hobby. Do you want to try to get a college scholarship, or would you like to try to do some like high school sports? And, tried this gym and stuck with this new gym. And that, of course, was, when I was hitting puberty around that time, and my body was changing. And, my parents didn't grow up as intense athletes. So they didn't necessarily have the knowledge of like, okay, what exactly do you eat for, someone who trains 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, or 6 hours in the summer and stuff like that. So, I remember the one time in high school where my relationship with food really changed was my coach kind of pulled me to the side and was like, hey, Natasha, if you lose 5 to 10 pounds, like these skills are going to be a lot easier for you.
Wow.
And being a 16-year-old,
You're like, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. So, I just remember, and whether or not he was trying to hurt I know he wasn't trying to hurt my feelings, but like, you're still a kid, you're a teenager.
Yeah.
So lots of things are changing, and I just remember being distraught.
Yeah.
And I go on this like low carb diet. And
How did you find out how to diet? I mean, did he give you suggestions, or as a 16-year-old back then, what year was that?
oh God, probably 2008.
So eating
2008,
disorders
around that time.
were being talked about for sure. That is wild that your coach said that. And it was a man. I'm not saying that's bad or good. That's just the way it was. And what diet did you go on then?
I just did a very low carb diet. And I lost 5 to 7 pounds.
Sure.
And then from that, I got praised
Of course.
for it.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't maintain that because, again, I'm not traveling, training, 24 plus hours a week with gymnastics. So it's not feasible.
Yeah.
And, I find that's probably very common in sports as well, is kind of not eating enough if you don't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
And being so young, you don't have that
No one ever
information.
talked to you about nutrition or mental health?
They talked a little bit about nutrition. Like we've had nutritionists come into like the gym and talk to us. But you're in high school and you just want to I had teammates that could eat cookies and just look awesome.
It's genetics.
It is partially absolutely is. And it's we all worked really hard. But that in itself, that's where I compared myself a lot to other people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the perfectionism came in as well. And just kind of all of that is just a recipe for an eating disorder on a platter.
Yeah. So that was 16 when he told you to diet, you started losing the weight, you started to get praised. Would you say around 16, 17 is when you really developed the eating disorder? And was it anorexia, bulimia, a mixture of both?
So that more was my awakening of food correlation to my body weight. Because I never really thought about it before that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until after my freshman year in college is where I truly got my eating disorder. I have multiple eating disorders, which I'll touch on. But I gained a lot of weight my freshman year of college.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
So I gained a lot of weight. I had a lot of fun my freshman year, but also, was a Division I athlete. So it was a hard transition. And I remember going home that summer, running more. My sister's a huge runner, so I tried to run with her. Dropping some weight. And then it was when I came back my sophomore year, social media, Instagram was just kind of like booming at that point. And there was this trending hashtag IIFYM, and it's if it fits your macros. And I started this healthy Instagram, posted all of my food, posted selfies. I mean, I started doing tons of extra cardio, obviously watching what I was eating minimally. So that's kind of how my anorexia started.
But it was under the guise of healthy eating.
Yes.
And what does macro mean?
Macros are just like your just calorie intake, essentially. You can have like your set proteins, fats, carbs. I was using my FitnessPal, tracking, scanning everything, keeping track of those.
I've done my FitnessPal.
Yes, and keeping track of just every little
Yeah.
thing and just trying to keep my body moving constantly and comparing myself to all of the other people on social media. And it just, I was weighing myself constantly.
Did you get a lot of
multiple times a day.
followers?
I did.
Yeah.
I got a lot of followers, and, I went home that summer, and I remember, I hadn't had a piece of popcorn and ice cream, nothing. I was so strict. And my mom was like, you want to go to the movies, whatever? And I remember being in the movies, and I'm like, she's like, do you want some popcorn? And I was like, no. And she's like, not even a piece. And I was like, no. And that was kind of the moment she had a conversation with me after that of like, I think it's time to like go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And it was really her push for me to kind of go and talk to a therapist at that point.
That's wonderful.
I'm so grateful.
Good for
my
your mom.
parents.
Yeah.
Because I think if you even think back in the day, like with gymnastics and stuff, like therapy wasn't talked about.
No.
Like mental health was not discussed. And it's really not until this year and like everything that happened with the Olympics with Simone
Right.
Biles, where college gymnastics, like coaches, well-known coaches, and these athletes are now talking about mental health and how important it is.
Right.
And that's truly what kind of saved me in all of this.
So do you feel like that, so you were still a gymnast, you were losing all this weight, you were getting praised.
Yep.
Your mom says something to you. Do you want to get well then? Probably not.
No.
Yeah. So what did you do?
It's obsessive.
Yeah.
It's obsessive. So what happened was I'm like, okay, well, because I started having all of these cravings at that point. Because I went
food?
for so
Yeah.
like I went for so long eating super healthy, and then
Yeah.
I was like, man, I really want a donut
Yeah.
or whatever. And then what happened was I ate a donut, and then I'm like, man, I really want an ice cream too.
Yeah.
So I got an ice cream as well. So my anorexia then turned into binge eating disorder, where I would just eat at night, eat everything. And then, God, I even remember trying to throw up, and I couldn't do it. And
That's scary. I remember that happening to me
yeah.
too.
And I the next day you feel guilty. And then it's just this reoccurring, just you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to be better. I'll stick to the plan of eating really healthy and everything. But then you have these cravings again. And then it turned into that binge eating cycle, just super, super unhealthy relationship with food.
So you never got help, or you tried to get help?
I did. It was more like in the summers. And it was kind of an evolving thing with therapy. I think it was mainly the summers where I'd come back because with gymnastics and school and everything, I was very busy. And,
Yeah.
I was, in a sense, improving some. But it really wasn't until I graduated in 2014 where I was like consistently therapy, weekly, really talking through some of these things and kind of getting those coping skills of how to kind of get myself out of it.
So you think it was like cognitive behavioral therapy? What kind of therapy do you do for an eating disorder?
I'm sure it varies, but I did talk therapy. And it started out with, because I think there were a lot of things tied to that. You don't just have an eating disorder to have one.
Yeah.
There's deep rooted issues tied to that.
Right.
And a lot of mine were comparing myself to other people and that perfectionism of the sport. And that was never talked about to me. And it wasn't until I was an adult where I really thought, oh my gosh, I'm in this sport where I'm asked to be perfect constantly. Like, it's how perfect can you be?
Yeah.
Every turn you take, you have a bent leg, your toe's not pointed. So of course I'm going to beat myself up if have this healthy Instagram and I'm comparing myself to my teammates and all of these social media influencers.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
it's a safe place to be as well. I just listened to Glennon Doyle this week talking about eating disorders on her podcast. And she said, as a kid, she was taught that she was loved if she was little. And then she said as she grew older, social media and society at large tells us that we're supposed to be thin.
Yeah.
So how do you, in this day and age, do you continue therapy? What do you do to keep your at bay? You told me you relapsed last year or had an occurrence. Tell us about that and what you're doing today to stay well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely continued therapy. I notice with myself, it's a lot of the times when I feel out of control maybe in my life, I kind of
Out of control.
Out of control.
I think control is a big, big thing for people with eating disorders.
Oh, yeah. Then it's something for you can control what you're putting in you.
Right. Even if everything else is chaotic.
Yeah.
I can control XYZ, what I put in my body and how much I exercise.
Yes. And it's recognizing the triggers too. And that took me a while. Like, don't get on the scale constantly, Natasha.
Yeah.
Don't get on, MyFitnessPal and track your macros.
Yeah.
It's those things. And that's kind of like what triggered my kind of relapse of the eating disorder last year. And that's what
You started comparing yourself or?
I got on the scale a little too much. So yeah.
So your advice to people who might be struggling would be don't have a scale.
I mean,
And get off social media.
that's a good starting point. Yeah, get off social media, take a little break from that, and kind of really hone into loving yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of like giving myself permission to not be perfect.
Yes.
And I'm who God intended me to be.
Right.
I'm Natasha.
Yeah.
Like, kind of loving me for me.
Right.
And I had to learn that because I didn't love myself.
And how is your family life, like your spouse, your parents, your extended family, how do they support you? I think there's so many parents out there that are struggling with children with eating disorders and they don't know, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to give that child praise or make them think that they want attention for it.
Yes.
If they want attention for it, they don't want to bring attention to it, if that makes sense. But at the same time, they're watching them wither away. So what are some real things that your family, your spouse do to support you on a daily basis, knowing that you struggle with this? And probably will. I feel like eating disorders more than any other mental illness are one of those ones that never gets talked about because of the stigma and no one wants to admit it, but it also is kind of like taking a pill where you hide that. You can hide it so well.
Yeah.
You can tell everybody you're fine. You don't have to be super thin to still struggle.
Oh,
It's a mind game.
1,000%.
So what can people that love someone with an eating disorder do to help? What's helpful to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously empathy, putting yourself in other people's shoes, kind of watching what you say.
Yeah.
And you kind of touching on saying, hey, you're looking kind of thin, or like how you kind of deliver that does make a difference, because when you're deep in an eating disorder, that makes you want to continue even more. Like it made me, like when someone's like, you're looking pretty thin, or like,
You're like, oh, it's working.
yeah, you're like, yes, like,
Yeah.
so it's in people don't, and they're not doing it on purpose, but they don't realize the words are so impactful. And I think it's hard having the balance of that open dialogue.
Yeah.
Of, I'm here for you. Like, do we need to talk about it? Do you want to go talk to somebody? Normalizing
Yeah.
talking to someone about your feelings, I think is the biggest thing. And not just don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, it's just gonna spiral out of control.
So conversely, what would you say what's something you don't say to someone with an eating disorder? Because I think that's tough.
Yeah, I would say don't say you're looking really skinny.
I'm worried about you. You're so skinny.
You're looking so skinny,
So don't comment on the looks at all.
No, I mean, you can, there's been, I feel like, a lot of talk about that of, looking fit, or you're looking really strong. Like, using more of those words to describe someone is a lot better, because the goal of being like skinny, it's not a good, being skinny is not going to make you happy.
No. It's not.
Getting to,
It'll make you feel in control.
yeah.
But that doesn't make you happy.
But even still, even if you get, and I've had this conversation with you before, but like when I said, okay, I'm going to get to 110 pounds, I'm going to feel happy. This is it. That's the number. I'm going to look good. I'm going to have a 6-pack. Boom.
Yeah.
Well, you get to 110 pounds and you're like, another 5 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just
It's
like.
never enough.
It's never enough. So and that's something that's so hard to grasp by yourself. And that's why having that open dialogue of, you know, talking about therapy of like, it's okay. Like eating disorders are a normal thing. It's okay to talk about it, you know, and just even having the conversation of how do you view food?
Yeah.
How do you view fitness? Do you feel like it's something you have to do? Do you feel like it's something you want to do? Do you feel like it's something because you want to fit in with other people? Kind of maybe asking those sort of questions and seeing, okay, well, what are their answers to that? Am I doing this to please someone else? Type of stuff.
Like for me, I know this isn't my therapy session, but I do like to talk about the fact that I struggle with a lot of different issues, but one of mine has always been body image. And I do feel better when I'm at my smallest, but what I've started asking myself is, and I don't feel like I need an answer for it, but so I feel like I need to work out and do cardio 7 days a week. I try to limit myself to 5, but I keep asking myself, what would happen? What would be the difference if I only did 3? What am I so afraid of? Is it being fat? Is it losing control over my muscles? What is it? And I've tried to sit with that, and I've started doing a little online yoga class, and that's really helped me like take the fact that I don't have to do cardio every day, but can take that same amount of time and put it into a mindfulness practice where I'm really nourishing my body and look at it that way. But taking care of yourself is not something that people with eating disorders think about. And that's where I'm trying to shift my focus is what does my body need?
Yeah.
Not what does society need of me and what do I need to look like for them, but what do I need?
Exactly.
There was one more statistic I wanted to read for it, which I thought was interesting. What would you think were the 3 sports that had the most eating disorders for women?
Gymnastics.
Yep.
Dance.
Yeah.
And maybe cheerleading.
Figure skating.
Figure skating.
So knowing that in hindsight, would you go back? Would you still do gymnastics?
Oh, God.
What can we do to change that field?
I think it's beginning to change. I think, you know, I'm seeing commercials now with college gymnastics we're in season right now. So they have commercials now about mental health.
That's
and
good.
They have really well-known schools, LSU, Oklahoma head coaches talking about let's focus less on the negative. Let's focus more on the positive. Let's talk more about it's okay if you're struggling with anything. Go talk to someone. There's nothing to be ashamed in regards to that. Like, go talk to somebody. So I think it's already changing. But I think having that kind of open dialogue.
But like realistically, and I guess ballet falls into dancing, but like as a ballerina and as a gymnast, and maybe I'm just naive, but you wouldn't be able to spin around on your toes or do these flips if you had extra weight on your body, or am I wrong?
No, I mean, it depends. I mean, obviously everybody's got different builds, you know, and back in the day it was you were constantly weighed and
They weighed you.
Back in the day. I didn't deal with that much.
Yeah.
But back in like the 80s and whatnot, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was weighed. And those are the coach that I was with in club, that's who he coached. He was coaching elite gymnasts that were trying to go to the Olympics and things like that. So he wasn't like that with us, but he still, I think, had maybe a little bit of that mentality. So a lot of it is coaching, knowing, and it's so hard too as a parent because especially if you've never been, my parents weren't involved in the sport at all. They didn't know anything about gymnastics.
Right.
So you're really trusting that these coaches have your kid's best interest in mind. And to a degree they do, but like they said to me, you know, and my teammates, this is your life.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is life. Getting a full ride, that is life. Like,
Wow.
you limit the football games you go to. You don't have the sleepovers. You have Saturday morning practice. Like, we had one day off a week. So it's just that obsessive, and it's not just my sport. It's other sports too. That obsessive mindset of like, you work, you go to school, you work really hard, you get the scholarship. Well, when you graduate, it's like, well, what now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
What
just,
do you do after that?
who am I? You're
Yeah.
not telling me what to do anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to be here. I don't have to do this assignment. You're not criticizing me constantly. Well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, so then you're left.
So what did you do?
Well, no, I was very lost, you
Yeah.
know, and I was in therapy.
Yeah.
I did
So
many
you
years of
graduated
therapy.
and then you went back home to Florida.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And I am so grateful for my family because they were just always so supportive of me, you know, and I'm so grateful for my spouse, my wife now. Like, she's incredible and is always there for me, and is very sensitive to the things that she says, you know, kind of what we're talking about. Like, before, my mom used to say, Natasha, like, you need to eat a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And
that
that's
does
like,
nothing.
No, number one, like, don't say that to me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, so it's like they've all kind of learned, you know,
Yeah.
be more, that wouldn't bother you, but it can bother other people. And you never know what someone's struggling with. So,
So how did you get to Orange Theory?
oh, man.
Which is my favorite place in the world. And I have to
Yeah.
say to everybody, when I first met Natasha, I had an instant connection, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just know, like, when I see somebody that's my kind of people. So it's typically someone that struggled with a mental health issue, but also someone who's very vulnerable and willing to share in order to help others. And
Yeah.
I heard you speak about your eating disorder. I think I read about it in a local magazine or something, and I was like, I knew I was connected to her for some reason. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
But I want to know, and I want to tell everybody what you do today, because you help me on a daily basis. You're my coach at Orange Theory. I love Orange Theory. I probably go too much. You know, I need to really start reevaluating that. My body's starting to tell me that I go too much, and I need to start listening to it. So I'm saying that out loud. So friends and family, help me with that. I go too much. But anyway, Natasha, tell us how you got there, and then we'll end up with just maybe some words of encouragement for younger generations that are coming up in gymnastics. And you never did say, would you do it again?
Oh, man.
You skirted that answer, but
I did skirt that answer.
it's probably more than just a yes or no question, to be honest.
There's a lot that goes into it. I don't know if I can give you an answer.
Okay, that's fine. We'll have you back and you can answer
I need
to see how you progress.
Yeah, I need a process on that. But
Okay.
What did you ask me?
How did you get to Orange
Oh,
Theory?
how did I get to Orange Theory?
So you were in therapy after college.
Yeah, I majored in corporate communications. I had no idea really what I wanted to do.
No
I
one
wasn't one of
does.
those people that was like, I want to be a nurse or I want to
Yeah.
be an engineer or something. I was just very, I don't know. I was like, I like helping people. I like talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, I ended up getting this like 9-to-5 marketing job, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
I can't see you doing that.
No, and it just wasn't for me, and I was miserable. I gained a lot of weight sitting behind a desk. You know, going from gymnastics to not doing gymnastics in
Yeah.
itself is hard. Your body's going to change. And during that time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try out Orange Theory. I've heard about it. And I became a member.
Uh-huh.
And that was really one of the only workouts that made me feel competitive,
Yeah.
kind of with myself, that I missed about being in a sport.
Yeah.
And that it was maybe 3 months in there, I was on the treadmill, and I just had this aha moment. I was like, why am I not doing this?
Yeah.
Like, this would be so much fun. Mm-hmm. And I was in Tampa at this time, and I talked to the coaches, and they were really supportive. And luckily, my parents, I was living with them at that time, and I was like, will you all support me in this? Like, can I quit my job? Can I study to do this? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And
Awesome.
I never looked back. I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
And how'd you get to Greenville? They just transferred you?
Well, my wife is from Greenville.
Uh-huh.
So Catherine's from Greenville, and I met her at the Orange Theory in Tampa. She was
No
doing
way!
her. Yeah, she
I
was
never
doing,
knew that.
Yeah, she was doing her residency there, at the VA there. So
Oh,
she
wow.
so I met her there and fell in love with her in Tampa, and she transferred back up here. Her whole family lives here. So I just knew. So
Yeah.
I quickly kind of reached out to people here after I went
that's
up with
wonderful.
her. And yeah, I moved here.
That's great. Well, just a plug for Orange Theory. It is could you tell our audience real quick what it is if they don't know, if they haven't heard of the craze?
It's a 1 hour full body workout. It's heart rate based. So you wear these heart rate monitors. There's treadmills, water rowers, and a whole weight room area of,
So you do your cardio and your weightlifting. That's why I love it so much. It's a full body. Not many places do full body.
Yeah, and there's a certified personal trainer every class, really great music, a lot of energy, and it's just a lot. You get a lot for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And you're not paying as much as you would for a personal trainer one-on-one, but you're still getting that personal trainer aspect of them walking around, making sure you're doing everything correctly. And to me, it's just really fun.
Yeah.
I always looked forward to going in to
Yeah.
Orange Theory when I was a member. So I like to think that is fun, but maybe not everybody thinks that. But
Well, and I love the fact that you're a coach and you've been through, mental health struggles. You talk about them. You can probably help so many other people feel good in their own bodies now that you've come out on the other side. And again, if you're struggling with an eating disorder or you have a loved one that's struggling with an eating disorder, we'll put lots and lots of resources in the show notes. Natasha is a coach here in Greenville at Orange Theory, but if you're ever thinking about going to Orange Theory, it's a fantastic exercise program. And I just really want to continue this conversation and keep talking about eating disorders because I think disordered eating, which I truly believe I have, rather than eating disorder, I don't starve, but I'm constantly thinking about what I'm going to eat, and that is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe next time when I have somebody on about eating disorders, I will have started some sort of either therapy or, I really, really am looking into all this because I think as women, we are so pressured to be thin today. So there is hope. You can get better. Natasha's gotten better.
Yeah.
And thank you so much
You're
for being
so
on our
welcome.
podcast.
Yeah. And I want to say too, and I preach this to everybody. Fitness is a journey. It's like a roller coaster. It's not a linear path. It's gonna go up and down. You may gain 5 pounds, you may lose 5 pounds, but if you love yourself, no matter what, that's okay. It's a part of life. You're not meant to be perfect. What matters is how you feel about yourself and how your loved ones feel about you. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
You're exactly right.
You going to Orange Theory constantly and how you're saying, your body's starting to deteriorate. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's okay to go 3 days and do something else that might maybe fuel your soul a little bit differently in different seasons of life. I'm not the same as I was when I was 20 or 18.
Yeah.
My body's different now. Yeah. So it's kind of recognizing that as well. And it's a whole mindset. I'm eating disorders and disordered eating is a mindset thing. So it's a journey and it never fully goes away, but it's something that you kind of work on and it gets easier.
Wow. Well, thank you. I know I learned a lot today and I'm sure y'all did as well. And join us next time on You Learn, You Turn. Thank you.
Thank you.